Hey, this is George for Title InflationUS. We're here with Kurt and Tim discussing free man on the land living undisclosed location, Southern California. And maybe you guys just do a real quick intro, your background and what caused you to live this type of lifestyle. Kurt, you want to go first?
Okay. You know, my birth certificate is my name and my Bible. You know, I don't have some special paper that the government's borrowing millions of dollars on my birth certificate somewhere. If they're doing it, they don't have my consent anymore.
I think that's the big string they got, is everybody's in debt. And we've come to expect a certain standard of living, and my opinion is we're slowly being ratcheted down to, they're trying to make the United States a level playing field with other countries in the world. In other words, they're raising their standard of living by lowering ours.
You need to just start going over all your billing. You know, you got to learn how to cut. And if you have to, you might have to move out of that $400,000 house. There's plenty of them out there now for $100,000. Plenty of them for $50,000. Just take steps like that. But yeah, get out of debt first of all.
So it's the number one way to become a free man is you can't be free if you have debt.
Exactly.
So cut up the credit cards, work on getting rid of the mortgage, and then try to get into a situation where you have very small amount of expenses.
Yeah, because that way, I mean, now, you know, especially anybody that's working, you never know from day to day, either they're going to cut your hours, you're going to lose your job. So I see people right now that, you know, that I'm dealing with, they have a mortgage, they got 2 car payments, and I just talked to a guy last week. He just lost his job, so they're going to have to walk away from the house and walk away from their vehicles. They really don't know what they're going to do, and they were actually, you know, in everybody's mind, they were living the American dream. But you know, once he lost his job, you know, he might get unemployment, but for a while, it's not going to be anything compared to what he was making. If anybody has Social Security, every year or two they'll send you a thing and they'll say, okay, you have this amount of entitlement for your benefits, and you have an account with this much money in it. There's no money there. The Social Security system is actually thrown into the general fund, so they could pull the rug out from under Social Security at any minute. And you know, they keep talking about it going bankrupt anytime. So I think that's the big trick, is they want to get you on some kind, depending on their system, because they keep extending the unemployment benefits. And you know, it sounds reasonable, but you know, how can you keep dishing out something and no money be coming in? If there's, so I think at some point relying on all these benefits is going to be to our detriment, because it's, like I said, it's going to be like a Katrina situation where we're counting on big government to save us, and they're not going to be there. We want to have peace in our life. In other words, we don't want to be always scared or worried, and we want to do as we want to, as long as we don't injure somebody else. And it seems to now that everything that, if we want to do something, including work or have property, it's all regulated.
And if you go to biblical law, one basic law in there is, owe no man no debt. Well, sorry folks, in this country, owing debt, that's the name of the game. The government's the biggest debtor that ever existed on the face of the earth.
Well, if you go back and you study the history, you know, I mean, first they created the Federal Reserve, which was the violation of the Constitution in the first place, because Congress can't delegate to a private anybody something that's their responsibility. That's number one. It took them 20 years to bankrupt the country. If you look at in 1913, when the Federal Reserve was created, the United States was the wealthiest and the largest creditor nation in the earth. 2013, it'll be 100 years. I think we're the biggest debtor nation. Anyway, it took them 20 years, and basically if you read the Constitution, this has never been amended, all money must be gold and silver. You can't print it. It's a commodity. Somebody had to go out and mine it, make it, melt it down, and so it was equal, it was fair. And if you understand what justice is, and you know, he was saying, what does it mean to be a free man? I'm saying it's being a moral and responsible man. Because if you understand what justice is, if you read up the definition, and then, you know, you go to court, you're expecting justice. It means rectitude. which means a moral character. Which is fair for you is fair for me. Now we have a private corporation called the Federal Reserve that can print money at will. When you go to the bank, you sign something called a promissory note. The bank actually accepts that as a deposit from you. In other words, you're depositing your future pay. That's put it, and the banking system is a double book entry system. They never show you the asset side of the books. That is your promissory note. They deposit that and write a check off that promissory note. They create it. And if you read all the Federal Reserve publications, they admit they create money out of thin air. So, to me, that's not a just system. People are realizing, okay, it's a win-win situation for the bank and it's a lose-lose-lose for the people.